The moment that would shatter everything began in absolute silence, broken only by the soft, desperate sound of someone trying not to cry. In the warm brightness of the late morning sun that spilled across the marble tiles of the Langford Mansion's kitchen, a young woman in a black and white maid uniform knelt in front of an open trash bin. Her hands trembled as she lifted an unfinished piece of breaded chicken, the kind that had been tossed away after a lavish breakfast no one truly appreciated. She bit into it with a kind of hunger that wasn't just about food, it was about exhaustion, humiliation, and a long-buried need to survive another day. Then came the gasp. A sharp, horrified draw of breath from behind her that felt like a strike to the heart. Elias Langford, a man who seemed to carry his entire world in the stoic firmness of his jaw and the deep lines of worry around his eyes, froze in the kitchen doorway. His expensive suit looked wildly out of place against the scene unfolding before him. The maid, Rena, jerked in shock, the chicken falling from her hand as if she had been caught committing a crime. She scrambled back from the bin, shaking, ashamed, eyes wide with terror, as if she expected him to fire her on the spot. Or worse. In that instant, the camera of life paused, her breath held, his heart pounding, and the truth of how far desperation can drive a person flickered in the space between them. Ripple of Love viewers, if you believe that hope, compassion, and second chances can save someone's life, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. These stories exist because kindness matters. The morning light shimmered off polished counters and gold-trimmed cabinet doors, illuminating how out of place Rena looked in this world. Elias's mind raced as he tried to process the moment. He had hired her only 2 weeks ago, barely noticing her beyond the fact that she worked quietly and efficiently. But now, seeing her scavenging for food in the trash, something inside him cracked open. It exposed the parts of himself he had tried hardest to bury, the failures, the guilt, and the fractures in his own life that money could never quite hide. Rena, trembling, pressed a hand over her mouth as if trying to erase what he had seen. Her eyes glistened with humiliation, and she shifted backward on the floor until her back hit the lower cabinet. Her heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear anything else. She had prayed he would never witness this. She had prayed no one would. She had promised herself it would happen only once, only because she had not eaten since yesterday afternoon, but shame does not bend to justification. Elias was someone the world called fortunate, blessed, enviable. A millionaire, a widowed father, a man who had built his empire in record time. But none of that mattered as he stared at the woman curled near the trash bin. Instead of anger, he felt something else entirely, something that rose from the hollowness he'd grown used to feeling ever since he lost his wife, Mara, 3 years ago. The grief had hardened him. It had made him distant. It had made him cold. But this sight, this heartbreaking truth, stirred something warm he thought had died. As the seconds passed, sunlight drifted across Rena's pale face, catching the faint bruise under her sleeve she had tried to hide since arriving. He hadn't noticed it before, but now details came alive, the way she moved with caution, the way she flinched when spoken to, the way she always said thank you even when nothing was given to her. Elias realized he knew absolutely nothing about her life beyond these walls, nothing about the road that had brought her here. The kitchen felt too quiet as Rena's memories surged through her in a dizzying rush. She thought of the boarding house she shared with 3 other women, the mold creeping up their walls, the way the landlady sometimes cut the electricity to save money. She thought of her younger brother, whom she sent nearly everything she earned because he was the only family she had left, and of the night he had cried to her on the phone about skipping dinner again so she could afford her rent. That was the night she had decided she could endure anything, even this. Elias finally moved. He took a slow step closer, not wanting to frighten her further. The marble floor reflected his shape as he crouched slightly, attempting to meet her eyes. But she kept them downcast, her breath fast, her fingers gripping the fabric of her skirt until her knuckles went white. She expected anger. She expected shame. She expected punishment. She did not expect gentleness. The birds outside chirped softly, and the rich scent of coffee lingering from breakfast filled the air, wrapping the room in a cinematic stillness that made every small movement feel like a turning point. Elias's chest tightened as he studied her. She looked like someone who had lived too many lifetimes of struggle in too few years. He wondered how many people had walked past her pain. How many had ignored it? How many had contributed to it without realizing? That thought pained him more than he could explain. He found himself remembering the nights after Mara died, when he felt like a ghost haunting his own home, pushing food around his plate until it grew cold, unable to eat while drowning in grief. He remembered the day his young daughter, Sarah, had tugged on his sleeve and asked why he never smiled anymore. He remembered the ache of realizing that pain does not discriminate, even in houses filled with wealth. For a long moment, the air felt thick with unspoken stories. Rena's breath steadied only slightly, though fear still clung to her like a shadow. Elias quietly reached out his hand, not to pull her up, not to scold her, but simply to offer something she had not received in a long time: dignity. The story unfolded slowly after that moment, each hour deepening the truth between them. Elias brought her a real meal. She tried to refuse, whispering apologies, but he insisted, not with force, but with a firmness that felt like care. As she ate at the small breakfast table, sunlight filtering over her trembling hands, Elias stood near the counter, pretending to tidy up but actually watching her out of concern, as if ensuring she didn't disappear. The mansion, once a place of suffocating silence, shifted. It softened. Rena told him pieces of her story. Not everything, just enough for him to understand the bruises, the hunger, the desperate search for work that had led her to his home. And Elias found himself sharing things too, quietly admitting how lonely the house had grown without his wife, how hard he tried to keep everything together for Sarah, how he often felt like he was failing. As daytime light moved across the walls, painting them in gold and white, the two people from completely different worlds realized how much pain they both carried. And somehow, without meaning to, they eased a bit of it for each other. But the twist came unexpectedly that afternoon, when the front door opened and little Sarah rushed in, her backpack bouncing as she ran straight into Rena's arms with the excitement only a child can summon. Rena froze, unsure if she should pull away, but Sarah buried her face against her and whispered that she missed her today. Elias watched from the hallway, stunned. His daughter had barely smiled in the past year, yet she had chosen Rena as her anchor. It became painfully clear that Rena had not only tended to the house, she had filled a void they hadn't even realized was growing. Ripple of Love family, if this story touched your heart so far, please like, share, subscribe, and spread kindness wherever you can. It means the world. As evening light bled gently through the mansion windows, Elias sat across from Rena in the quiet living room. He looked at her not as an employer does with an employee, but as one wounded soul trying to reach another. He told her she would never go hungry in his home again. He told her she didn't need to hide. He told her she mattered. Rena's eyes welled with tears. She tried to blink away. She had survived so long by expecting nothing from anyone that receiving kindness felt almost unbearable. But in that moment, she felt something new, something like safety, something like belonging, something like hope. Before the final emotional moment of the story, viewers, please comment below and tell us which part touched your heart the most. And as the last rays of sunlight softened the edges of the room, Rena slowly allowed the weight she had carried for years to slip from her shoulders. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't disposable. She was someone who had endured, someone who had fought, someone who was finally seen. Elias realized that helping her had healed something inside him too, something he'd believed was beyond repair. In the end, the mansion didn't need chandeliers or marble floors to feel full. It needed human warmth. And as Rena tucked Sarah into bed that night, and Elias watched them both with quiet gratitude, the house finally breathed again, alive with compassion, connection, and the simple, powerful truth that saving someone else sometimes saves you too.